What's up everybody? It's me. I'm doing this video to show you how I do my U-Part wig. As you can see, my hair is braided. It's in its natural state. So, it's a little fuzzy ball right here. And I've just braided my hair up. Um, you know, braided it back and I pin it, sew it down in the back. Um, and I got my hair from Alixpress, and the vendor I'm going to have listed below because I cannot pronounce it. Um, it is Peruvian hair. It's Peruvian. Here it is here. It's curly, it's pretty, it's all those wonderful things. I just sealed my wefts here. Eileen's stop frame. And pretty much you just kind of put the glue here across around your wefts. Kind of keep it from shedding. Even though, so far I'm not sure how I feel about this vendor yet. I'll do a hair review later. Okay. So I have 3 bundles of Peruvian Virgin Curly. Okay. For my net, I have made, I use that here. What I actually sew my hair on is a weaving cap. And this is the kind that I like to use. I've tried this and I've tried the dome caps, and I like this better because dome caps usually doesn't give enough air in your hair and doesn't get a chance to wash it, and I like because it has the, the netting, okay? And my head is small, so it fits my head perfectly. The dome caps usually tend to stretch and get too big. So what I have here is the net, and I have put it on my head, measured it, and have it cut in the areas that I want to use. It don't have to be perfect because I usually sew mine down. Now what I'm going to do at this point, I have the mannequin head here, okay? I have a mannequin head. I do have Sesame Street on my shirt. And what I usually do is I put this on the mannequin head. Now, what I've come to learn after trial and error, the mannequin head is small, okay? So you can't really just try to sew it tight like you want to, because it'll wind up making this net shrink smaller because of the stitching. So what I tend to do is and then I don't really know because this is smaller than my head. I usually put this on and measure where I want to go, and just kind of just use this basically as a base. I don't try to make it pretend like it's a real head. I just more so use it as something hard for me to sew in and make sure I keep pulling the net apart, because if it starts scrunching up, it's going to get too small and you're going to wind up, it's not going to fit the way you thought it was when you first put it on your head before putting hair on the actual weaving cap. So that being said, now I'm going to sew some hair on. I basically know that I want it to go from here to here. So you thread your needle here, okay? And I always start with the end, and I always at the ends make sure I sew it a couple times just to make sure the end is down. And a little technique you could do is wrapping the thread around the needle, see, and then pulling it through, and that kind of makes a knot. Just pushing it down makes a knot, okay? And then I just continue to go across as so. Now this is my method of how I do this sew-in weave cap. I don't know what other people do, or you know, maybe people will be like, oh, I do mine differently. Good for you. This is just how I do mine, and it works for me, and maybe it'll work for somebody else. So that's why I'm sharing. So, and you just pretty much, I just kind of sew them pretty close together, because I have my weave caps for a very long time. The one I have that I always wear, I've had it for over a year now. That's why I had to go ahead and get me some new hair, because it was like starting to thin on the track eventually. It was still beautiful and luxurious, but it was just, you know, starting to thin out. So I just continue with this all the way until you get to the other side. Okay? When you're starting to near the point where you need to end the track, I don't cut my tracks. I don't cut my weaves. I used to do that, but that tends to leave more shedding, and it's harder to reuse your hair, having to measure stuff out. So I always just fold it back the other direction. And what I mean by that is, as you can see here, it's laid flat. You know, now these wefts are a little thick, but you just fold it the other direction, and you can pretty much keep on sewing, you know. Just make sure you get that, make sure you get it down kind of tight, and make sure you don't, a trick, okay. When you see these little nets, don't thread way up here. It's going to draw the netting closer. You want to thread it either real inward, like underneath the track, or go either way that you go, under or over. You just want to be like not grabbing so much of the hair, grab so much of the netting, because it's going to make you start making the net shrink. Okay, at some point you're going to start getting closer to the edge. You have to just keep on making sure that it is going to fit your head, especially with this kind of material. It's not that stretchy material like the dome cap. So you just have to keep constantly, not constantly, but every so often after you're sewing layer by layer so you can kind of, let me do this. You can kind of see what's going on here. You know, see, so far, this is what I've got done. And you just want to test it out and make sure you still on the same pattern that you want it to go in. And as you can see, I'm still going in the same pattern that I want the weave to go in. Everything's flowing in the direction that it needs to. Okay. Okay, so when you're getting closer to the end, you start sewing towards where you cut the U. Eventually, the hair is just going to all kind of track will go all the way around it, as you can see here. Okay, and what I'm doing now is I just cut the excess netting off, and I am just kind of reinforcing this area by just kind of sewing around it to make sure that it is definitely secure, because it's pretty much a base, or not really a base, but you know, this just can't be tattered or anything. So when you're done with that,
Kayla asks for more and more loans, but she doesn't bother to pay the money back.
It should
Kamisha starts to feel her best friend is taking
look like
advantage
that.
of
Now
her.
it looks big. This U-part looks big. But of course, you just bring it in. And as you can see, pretty full in the back.
But Kayla can't
I
take care of
used
the baby on her own.
16, no, 18, 20, and 22. Okay, so now that I've completed the actual cap, as you can see, this is the inside. You see I did a lot of little layers. And here's the other side. Okay, I'm going to sew this onto the perimeter of my head. As you can tell, you can see I'm not good at braiding my own hair. I can braid somebody else's braids, but for me, I don't really care about what the braids look like underneath because they're underneath my hair. Nobody's going to see. As long as this braid right here and this braid around my head is solid, I'm good. I could have 4 big braids. It don't matter. Anyway, so I do the little braid around that, you know, in a U-part way. And I'm going to sew this onto that. The reason I don't use clips, and I have used clips before, like sew clips on and just make a clip-on wig, is because the clips combs started to break my hair off in the areas that the combs laid, from the tension and the little combs just constantly being pulled like that. I was starting to get little bald spot and stuff. So I stopped doing that and just started doing it, sewing it in and just having it in there for like 4 weeks, and then take the strings out around the perimeter, wash my hair, braid it, and do it again. And that's what I've been doing. It just makes the sew-in process quicker instead of having to sew in track after track after track every time. I could just sew it around the perimeter and I'm done. There's no real solid method on how you want to put this on your hair, sew this on your hair. I always start from the from the front first, just so I can make sure that I did it right, you know, like that I have my spacing and it's tight and whatnot. And I probably need to look in the mirror instead of looking in this camera. But basically, you're going to sew. You can start from his corner if you want, or I usually start further back because I don't want to risk. I just kind of like starting here. And then I go around, sewing around, then come back, and eventually, you know, go around to here. All right?